Okay, so this is just a matching question, and then the other cryptic questions, I'm trying to prompt you for specific answers. Okay, so let me just match these up for you. Okay, so let me just go through what this is all about. Majority is what you usually think of majority. You need more than half means majority. Whereas, for example, plurality, if you win by plurality, you have the largest share of the votes, but it may not be a strict majority because there may have been some kind of splitting, okay? That's what usually happens in U.S. presidential elections. There's usually no candidate that actually gets more than 50% of the vote. Okay, monotonicity is saying if you have a set of ballots before and after, like cast the first set of ballots and then cast the second set of ballots, if the whatever candidate wins in the first set of ballots should continue to win in the second set of ballots if the only changes the individual voters make are to somehow increase the choice of the winning candidate. So let's say somehow they said, oh, okay, let's do a revote. Let's do a revote and a recount, and then the winning candidate either stays the same or goes up on every ballot, and those are the only changes made. In other words, any candidate who was a loser gets ranked even further down on each ballot, okay? Then the previous winner should continue to win. That's just kind of obvious, but stating it very explicitly, explaining like what it is that we're saying is unfair. That's what's really, we have to be careful about how we say that. Condorcet says that any candidate who could win all head-to-head races should win overall. That seems pretty obvious. Independence of irrelevant alternatives is very similar in field to monotonicity, and that's saying that if a winning candidate, the winning candidate should continue to win if one of the candidates who had lost before drops out in the second set of ballots. Okay, so if you took somebody who lost before, that losing candidate shouldn't have somehow made a problem for the winner. Now, this is a weakness with Borda. Borda has all these kind of issues with it. Unrestricted domain is very similar to citizen sovereignty, so just be careful about like this one and this one. Number 5 says all possible options may be ranked in any order on each ballot. Okay? Versus number 9 is the final ranking. It's the same type of condition, but unrestricted domain is talking about the way voters are allowed to cast their ballots, whereas citizen sovereignty, sorry I can't spell that right, is talking about the fact that there should be some set of ballots that will bring you to a ranking that does the same kind of thing, that rank orders the candidates in any arbitrary order. Okay, Pareto principle is saying that if each voter prefers A over B, then the whole scheme should somehow prefer A over B. There shouldn't be some flipping that the scheme somehow prefers B over A when all the voters preferred A over B. And that's kind of intuitive as well. They all should be really kind of intuitive. Decisiveness means a winner can be determined. Well, this isn't always possible. What if we have an even number of ballots and 2 candidates? Then obviously ties are possible. So sometimes decisiveness is too much to ask. Okay, non-dictatorship is simply saying there should not be a dictator. A dictator is somebody whose vote somehow overrules everybody else's preferences. Okay, and this cryptic question I'm asking, are there any situation in which all these, and can Arrow's conditions, meaning all these conditions above, where they all hold, and then sure, if you have 2 choices and an odd number of voters, then it's all good. Then we don't have to worry about anything because everybody votes for what they want and majority wins, and then there's no problem. There's always, all these are taken care of. These issues arise when you have 3 or more options, which is why I think that human beings tend to bunch into 2 groups for voting purposes. Although those alliances may shift based on which thing is being decided. The impossibility theorem states that you cannot satisfy all these conditions in any voting scheme unless you have this situation with the two choices and like an odd number of voters. But if you have 3 or more possible outcomes, then there's no way to create any kind of voting scenario which will be fair all the time. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't try, and it doesn't mean that some voting systems are definitely inherently better than others. It just means that whenever you need to decide between 3 or more outcomes, any voting system can generate like somehow bad scenarios which violate some of these conditions listed above. Okay, it doesn't mean that every voting situation will trigger one of these problems. That means there can arise sets of ballots that will trigger these things to happen or to become obvious. So what Ken Arrow had said in one video I had watched is basically, you try to find the best voting system that will generate the best options most of the time for that scenario.